your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin-yang, come along.
Come along and welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Thursday. Jim Coyle with you as always. Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition sitting in as he does as well. Looking forward to it. I think Mitchell Page is going to join us, so it's going to be a fun day. Plenty to talk about. Nick Saban's got COVID. We've got games getting canceled. We've got the offensive and defensive coordinators for Indiana to hear from them on what's going on. There's plenty to talk about, Dustin.
Yeah, it was kind of a busy day yesterday. We've got, postponements in the SEC. We had a crazy football game last night, major decisions from the NCAA. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We got a lot to get to today. Jam-packed hour.
There you go. First, let's talk about the NCAA. They have, just like they did last spring, just like they did in the fall, they have now awarded an extra year of eligibility to these winter athletes. And, yeah, that's all nice and all good and done, but just like everything, we're going way too far. This is an overcorrection. They've gone way too far. Now you're going to have an extra class, an entire class of athletes in 5 classes of athletes. Now these schools got to pay for this. It's 5 years of scholarships. What about playing time? What about player development? What about recruiting? Well, that guy's there. I don't want to go there. I mean, that name, image, likeness. You're going to do that at the same time. And the NCAA, they're going to oversee all of this because they've done such a marvelous job up to this point of doing all that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. This is just, I think college athletics is on the verge of implosion.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how this goes because a lot of people talked about this, during the fall sports season and what that meant for incoming football recruits. And basically, in my opinion, what the NCAA is saying is they're just going to say, hey, you're going to deal with this on a school by school or a conference by conference basis. I don't know if they've, and I haven't dived deep enough into this, I don't know if they've talked about scholarship limits, how far out those scholarship limits are going to be, if they're going to leave it up to different conferences. I don't know how any of that's going to work. And then you have these incoming kids who are making their decision. And now instead of maybe waiting a year or two to play, they might have to wait 3 or 4 years to play because you could see some seniors return, some injured seniors come back, 5th year, 6th year. You could see potentially 7th year guys in football and basketball and all these other sports. So it's going to be just a wild couple years. This isn't going to be just a 1-year thing where you're going to see this kind of overlap. It's going to stretch for the next 4 to 5 years at least. So they're going to have to be some sort of scholarship requirements, and it's going to be on the schools. In my opinion, these schools are now going to have to be the bad guy and say, hey, we can't afford to do this. So you have to make one of 2 decisions. You're going to say, hey, we're going to offer these additional scholarships for football, basketball, baseball, or and have to cut the other programs, their scholarship limits, or you're going to have to say, we're just not going to honor it. We're going to have to go with how we normally, operating process. If you're a 4th year or 5th year senior and you've played all your eligibility, sorry, but we just can't afford it right now. So it's going to be something to keep an eye on, not just this year, but for the next, like I said, 4 or 5 years, potentially.
Yeah, it's going to take that. I've talked about that when just the first time they did it, but to cycle this out, it's going to take that long. And I wonder if that benefits programs like Indiana. I call them middle programs in the Big Ten. They're a middle program. Does that benefit or hurt middle programs? Does it benefit or hurt the programs at the top? I think nothing benefit or hurts them. It's just right. They are what they are. But it's the other programs. And the middle programs are the ones that are poised to either break out or break down. Does this benefit them in any way?
Yeah, and to your point, I think a program like Ohio State or like a Penn State or Michigan, where you see so many guys go to the NFL on a yearly basis, you're going to have a little bit more roster flexibility. But at a place like Indiana, that typically doesn't happen. You very rarely do you have a guy declare early, and then very rarely do you have even guys, get selected in the NFL draft. I know Tom Allen is kind of changing that, and Indiana's getting better talent, and they're getting more guys to the NFL now. But it's going to be interesting to see. What I think this is really going to end up hurting for some of these programs like Indiana. It's going to be beneficial from the standpoint of you're probably going to have better athletes on your roster for a longer period of time. So that's going to be helpful. But I think you're going to see a decrease in the amount of walk-ons that are allowed on the program because you're still going to have in some capacity these roster limitations. And, you might see a walk-on here or there, I guess. But I think you're going to see that number decline. I mean, I don't know how it's all going to work, but that would be my guess as to how that's going to really impact. But as far as the scholarship and the talent standpoint, I would think it would benefit a team like Indiana because you have, for example, maybe a Michael Penix comes back for an additional year, or a Stevie Scott comes back for an additional year. So that's something to keep in mind, whereas that's probably not going to happen at a place like Ohio State. But, just the walk-ons and the roster limitations is what's going to be interesting for some of these middle-tier programs in the Big Ten and across the country.
Well, and now let's stay on the NCAA train because there's just a plethora of stuff that they're dealing with right now. We just talked about all that. Now, and you mentioned it before, the NCAA is one step closer to adopting the rule that would allow all Division I athletes in all sports to transfer to a new school and compete immediately without having to worry about it. I just saw somebody else get that immediate eligibility yesterday that was of note, and I'm forgetting who it is right now. But this is gigantic. I mean, this is something that's been fought for by the athletes, and I see both sides. I certainly do. I certainly, if I was an athlete, I would want to be able to do what I wanted to do. But at the same time, I can certainly see how this would throw a whether it's basketball or I don't know if football can be hurt that bad, but we've seen all the transfers in football, Dustin. The guys going from Georgia to Ohio State, Oklahoma, here, there. It changes the game some, and it certainly keeps the rich richer.
Well, and it allows for players to kind of make more rash decisions. And I don't know, you want these student athletes, it's their lives, obviously. You want them to be able to make the decision that they feel is in their best interest. But at the same time, how much thinking is going to go on? We talked about a guy like Samson James, who entered the transfer portal, said it was a mistake.
Perfect
He's
example.
back at
I was going to bring him up.
He's back to Indiana now. But what happens if he decides that he doesn't have to? It's a guarantee he gets to play immediately at his next destination. What if he wants to go play at a place like, I don't know, if he wants to play immediately Rutgers or Maryland or Ball State or someplace where maybe the cachet of a big program or playing in the Big Ten, maybe that's not quite as important to him as it is just to get on the field and expose his brand. So I think that there's positives and negatives. The only thing, Jim Harbaugh talked about this back in the 2019 media days. The one thing I think that this is going to bring is at least some consistency, because you see guys like Justin Fields get immediate eligibility at Ohio State and some of these other big time quarterbacks who transfer into big time programs. And then you have a tight end in Luke Ford who transfers from Georgia to Illinois to be closer to his family because he's got grandparents who had failing health, and he's not granted immediate eligibility by the NCAA. So at the very least, there's going to be some consistency with allowing all student athletes to transfer that one time. So I think that's going to be beneficial. But what this means, I think what you'll see, at least when this gets passed, assuming it gets passed for the 2021 season, is that first year, I think you're going to see a mass exodus, and a lot more people are going to hit the transfer portal because they know there are no repercussions if they decide to transfer.
Well, part of the proposal includes the possibility for the D1 Council to set deadlines on notification of transfer. For fall and winter sport athletes, it would be May 1st. For spring sport athletes, it would be July 1st. Athletes would be required to provide written notification of transfer to their school. Some exceptions to those deadlines could be made in instances where a head coaching change happens, but at least they're trying to put some kind of protocol into where it's not just everybody's running for the hills nonstop 24/7, 365.
Yeah, and I think that's the one benefit. You can look at that and say, hey, at least these teams will, you could potentially see guys still enter the transfer portal and just know that they're not going to play for a year. But I think what this does is it's probably going to limit the number of guys, that are going to say, oh, I'm not number one on the depth chart or number two on the depth chart. here in fall camp, I'm out of here and I'm going to be able to transfer and go play immediately. I think that was a really important, little piece of information that they put in there, a little guideline that they put in there. So that way you don't see people transferring as much mid-season or right before fall camp. So that's going to help these coaches and these coaching staffs, know what they have. And if a player decides to leave, you still can't stop them, but at least they can't leave and then go play immediately somewhere else if there was a roster opening with that other team.
And the name, image, likeness, that's not completely put to bed yet as far as how that's going to roll out. I think the NCAA has taken another step towards introducing the rules that would allow them. But is that set in stone how this is going to go up, how it's going to happen?
Not to my knowledge, but I, like I said, I don't follow it quite as closely as some other people, but I don't think it's all set in stone just yet. I mean, I know that they'd be able to do advertisements and they would be able to, do promos and autograph sessions and things like that. But I don't think anything's been solidified just yet. I know at the NAIA level, they have implemented that, and that's a go. So student athletes at the NAIA level can profit off their name, image, likeness, but I don't think it's passed all the protocols yet at the NCAA. And whether or not that's going to be voted on in January, I know the NCAA is going to be voting on a lot of things in January, but that might be the case. This may be like the one-time transfer rule where they're taking the next step and then the finalization comes in January. But, as to my knowledge, I don't think it's a done deal just yet, but it's getting closer and closer.
It certainly is, man. It just seems like a lot. It is a lot. It's a lot. It's so much going in at one time. And then you look at the fact that the NCAA is who we're looking at to oversee all this. And all I can do is shake my head and say, what the hell's going to happen to college sports? I'm serious. I don't think that they've been able to control it, period. So now they've not been able to stop people from getting paid. So they make it okay to get them paid. But how in the world are they going to regulate that? They haven't been able to do it before. It's just, I see it as now those teams that have already been doing it and getting away with it, they're experts at it. They know how to do it. So you don't think they know how to do it better? Yeah, they will.
Yeah. And the interesting thing to me about this whole thing is going to be, how this affects a team like, let's say Indiana basketball. I know it's struggled recently and they want to get back to the top. Do you have some big time donors who decide, hey, it might be worth it to have some of these big name high school guys, guarantee them some sort of deal where they are going to be an advertiser. They're going to be, appear on a commercial or do some of these signing deals. But that's just one example. Nebraska football is another. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Right here, we can look at towns like Evansville, Fort Wayne, those type size towns that have great athletes, high school, great high school sports. There's a ton of car dealers in those towns. Ford, Chevy, Toyota, whatever. What does a car dealer do more than anything? Advertise. You don't think that a car dealer is not going to love whoever the hot basketball star is? Like, Christian Lander. He's gone from Evansville, so let's use him as an example. If he was still down, actually, still can. Right there you go. Yeah. They can attach a car dealer from Evansville attached to Christian Lander as to promote their services and pay him for it. But they could do that in high school. I don't know if it's just I'm just afraid that there's no inline. There's no stopping because the NCAA has not proven that they can manage much. And so this scares me to death.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point because I think that's the biggest concern. You have to regulate it so that it's fair to everyone. And I know it's not really fair to everyone right now as it is. I mean, you look at places like Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama on the football side, those teams are always out recruiting everybody. They always get the best talent. So you're not going to be able to make it fair for everybody, but you have to at least make the playing field as equal as possible. And based on what we've seen from the NCAA, throughout its history, there's just no guarantee or no belief that that's going to be able to be made happen. So that's I think the biggest concern. I don't think you're alone in that. It's the NCAA trying to regulate anything. They struggled so much with just transfers and penalizing certain teams for making up classes or for paying players or for having recruiting violations. So how are they going to manage actual dollars and cents? I don't think anybody has any faith that they can do that.
Absolutely. Hey, we got more to to go here. Lots more to go. We've got Kane Womack to hear from. We've got Nick Sheridan to hear from, the offensive defensive coordinators from Indiana, and former great IU football great Mitchell Page. Going to join us next. Can't wait. Listen up to Indiana Sports Beat. We're back with more from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Hey, this is Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're now a part of the Rivals Network. TheHoosier.com is where you'll find complete coverage of the Indiana Hoosiers, as well as coverage of the Big Ten. Simply go to TheHoosier.com and sign up. It's free. You can also catch Indiana Sports Beat Radio there each day at your convenience, or you can find it any place you podcast or on this station each weekday. If we're not on the station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
No matter where you are in life, here's a question to consider. Do you have the right financial advisor to help you navigate where you want to go? An Ameriprise advisor will take the time to truly understand what's important to you and help you prepare for whatever life brings, both the expected and the unexpected, by providing personalized advice based on your goals and needs, and regular reviews along with digital tools to help you stay on track. With an Ameriprise advisor, you can feel more confident, connected, and in control of your financial life. Call Dennis Schneider, Heath Schneider, or Nick Davis with Schneider & Associates, a private wealth advisory practice of Ameriprise Financial Services. Call 877-827-1404. That's 877-827-1404. See Dennis Schneider at 236 North Elm Street in Henderson and Heath Schneider or Nick Davis at 20 East Campground Road in Evansville. Ameriprise Financial Services, LLC. Member FINRA and SIPC.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Thursday, joined now by one of the absolute best, Mitchell Page, former IU football player. How's it doing, man?
I'm awesome. Appreciate you having me on again, Jim. Been too long.
Way too long. Way too long. It's almost football season. It's almost, we got about a week and a half. This has been such a slow crawl to get to this point, man. I'm like, let's go already.
Yeah, I use Instagram and Twitter have just been killing me. Talking about the scrimmages, but not really talking about the scrimmages. Who's playing well kills me. I can't wait to see the boys take the field. I've been telling everybody, I think this is the best team, definitely since I've been alive, that has ever been on campus talent-wise.
Isn't it crazy? I mean, and you played with some great guys. You were one of the greats, but they are offensively, man, you got what you need. You got great running backs. You got great receivers. The line is intact right now. And, of course, you got Michael Penix at the moment. Offensively, man, they are set up to do some damage.
Absolutely. I think they need to find one or two linemen that can kind of fill in, plug-and-play roles. But other than that, you get one or two guys to step up, man, they are primed. I'm really excited to watch them explode, and the defense is going to fly around because Coach Allen wouldn't have it any other way.
Can you imagine all that's going on with this pandemic and stuff? And me and Dustin just finished talking about every athlete from last spring through this winter has been given an extra year of eligibility. Can you imagine, first of all, dealing with all the stuff you've dealt with, but then to have that extra year on top of a fourth year, which would be crazy. And there are a lot of guys who are kind of like right in that tween of not quite ready for the NFL, that next level, but another year. This is going to change a lot of things.
Yeah, the fourth year guys are. I think it's a no-brainer. If you're not a first-round draft pick and you want to play football, I think it's a no-brainer. You come back. These are free games that you get to show, film, and create all kinds of good things for yourself. But I think what's most interesting is those fifth-year guys. Because the fifth-year guys, I was a fifth year. I've been thinking about it, and people have asked me, like, would I have come back for the sixth year? The answer for me is obviously yes, because I just have to. But I don't think most guys would. That's a long time to play college ball. So it'll be interesting. We already have 10 million guys opting out, and then Rondale Moore opting back in, a bunch of other guys opting back in. It's going to be crazy times, and I think your team's going to look different week to week as we get ready for 2021.
You know, Mitchell, Indiana drew kind of a rough schedule to start the season off. They play Penn State. I'm curious, when you see a ranked opponent on the schedule, what's that week of preparation? Obviously, Indiana's had, a couple weeks to prepare for Penn State now. What's kind of like going through your emotions right now when you know you have an opportunity, week one or early in the season to make a statement game, especially at a program like Indiana that's come close to beating the Michigans and Ohio States, but still trying to get over that hurdle right now?
Yeah, I think obviously this year is very different. There'll be all kinds of different emotions just not playing in so long. But I'm going to give a cookie cutter answer. We play in the Big Ten East. And whether we play in the first game or the 12th game, it's always a chance to make a statement. Everybody's like, oh, the schedule's so impossible. We're the only one that plays all four teams that are ranked. Like, what? We play them every year. What else do you want? Like, just because Michigan State they're kind of down right now. They're still Michigan State. They're not ranked. They're usually the fourth ranked opponent. We play 3 top 10 teams every single year. And that's just the way that it is. So I don't think the guys are going to be like, oh, Penn State, oh, we got a chance to make a statement. When you play in the Big Ten, you have to make a statement every week to gain any respect, especially in what I believe is the toughest side of any conference in America.
Absolutely. I firmly agree. And it stays that way consistently. And a lot of things, there's always ebbs and flows. The SEC, those teams over there, with the exception of Alabama, has been ebbs and flows on who's up and down. The Big Ten, man, it stayed so solid with Wisconsin and Ohio State as the two juggernauts at the top of that side. Then you add Penn State and Michigan State, who's flipping. But it just stays so consistent. And unfortunately for Indiana, it's consistently on the Big Ten East side more so than not. But that, as you said, it is what it is. Last year we saw them should have beaten Michigan State at Michigan State, should have beaten Penn State at Penn State. This year they get that opportunity again. And Coach was on with us a week or two ago and talking about that and talking about getting that win. It's time, because that's the one thing that I don't get. Other programs, whether it's Vanderbilt or a lower end program, every so often they're able to come up with that crazy win. Indiana just can't get there. And there was a stat the other day. Indiana is like of the top 3 teams in the country of losing games by a touchdown or less. But the thing about Indiana's games, the majority of those were against teams that were ranked in like the top 15. So it's crazy. And golly, they're right there. We know that. I think this could be the year.
Yeah, I don't think there's many teams that are on that list that have lost that many close games that are as consistently good as IU is. IU, when we were there, we struggled a little on defense, but we had a top 5 offense in America. Like, we would run people off the field. We had players at every position, guys in the NFL. And it makes no sense that we can't beat those teams. And I argue consistently, I think there's depth issues that when you get to like the Ohio States and top 5 teams, but a team like Penn State, a team like Michigan, Michigan's is probably the most beatable of the big four on our side. I'm not going to make any statements about how I believe their team is operated, but I think they're the most beatable. It's time. And I feel like we say this every year. I think we have the right guy at the helm. I think the players play for the right reason. There's, at least in my time around, the guys, they believe in each other as opposed to trying to get to the NFL. I got to get mine. I want to win for these guys. And that's a huge difference from the program in the past. And like I said, I think this is the best team that we've had on campus.
Big statement, Dustin. Coming from somebody who would know.
Well, absolutely. And you talk about Indiana trying to take that next step. And I just am curious, Tom Allen's done a great job in his first 3 seasons. The coaching in the Big Ten seems to have gotten better towards the end of the decade than it was at the beginning of the decade. In your opinion, does that make what he's done, not just on the field getting 8 wins last season, but recruiting, some of IU's best classes have come the last couple of years that Tom Allen's been there. Does that make it more impressive to you what he's been able to do, considering that, how deep the teams and the coaching has gotten in the Big Ten?
Yeah, he's certainly separated himself as someone that recruits very differently than coaches in my experience. He doesn't try to push wins or programs. I mean, obviously that's part of the pitch, but his biggest thing is, I think, to the parents through to the kid, like when your kid comes here, he's going to be a part of a real family and we're going to love each other. Obviously the LEO is his biggest mantra. He's going to grow as a man, and we're going to play and have a ton of fun, and we're going to win as many games as we can. But this is a place where your son will come and be safe and loved, and we're going to have a ton of fun doing it. And he's going to be set up when he leaves here to be extremely successful in life. And I think that's just a different approach when you think about it, that's given him a huge edge.
There's no doubt, because I've talked about it many times. There's been a lot of coaches that have come here. Sam White, Cam Cameron, DiNardo, names. They experienced, been in the SEC, been here, been there, all these big places, and did not do anything close to what Tom Allen is doing. I know White was only here for a year, but they didn't come close. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know how. When he started, I didn't know how he was doing it when he was doing it. I'm like, this is crazy. There's no way this guy that has 0 experience, has 0 winning, has done nothing, can land these players. And he did, and he's still doing it, and he keeps doing it, and it's getting bigger. And now the next piece is the winning piece. And you said the words that I say a lot. It's time. It's just simply time. And it is. And keeping this program just without that explosion, is this a year that, as crazy as this sounds, Indiana could finish second in the Big East? I know that they can beat Michigan. We saw that they can beat Penn State last year. We know that they can beat Michigan State. Why can they not finish second in the Big Ten East in a year that they have the best?
I mean, you're not going to find any rebuttal from me. I think we've been consistently better at a lot of starting positions than those 3 teams. I think Ohio State is a bit of an exception. I think we play with those guys, but I'm not going to sit here and say when I was on the field, I was like, yeah, I could play for them. I just don't think
get the win? Why can't the win come like at Michigan State and Penn State last year? Just brutal to watch those games, because those were just games. Coulda, shoulda, woulda won.
Yeah, I mean, you throw Tennessee in there, a blue blood program, obviously throw that one in there. Like, I think the thing that has held Indiana back for a long time is the depth. The starters were never a problem, even some of the second string guys, but that you just aren't able to sustain a roster in a Big Ten East schedule throughout the season. But now I think that young guys are not so young anymore. And now all of a sudden we've got backup guys. A guy like Marcelino Ball goes down. Marcelino's a great player. Feel for him, wish the best for him. Kid's an awesome dude, but I don't feel like, oh no, we're screwed. Whereas in the past, that might be the case. We've got a guy that can come in. We can plug Fitzgerald in there. We can plug a bunch of different guys into different places, and they can just go out and roll the balls out and play. And I think that's a huge difference from where Indiana's been, and that's when you start to see a program establish itself as, we got to win some games before I call them elite, but before you make some real changes and turn a corner as your program.
And I'm going to shift gears here just a little bit here. You've played in some jam-packed stadiums throughout your career. There's probably also been some stadiums that were a little bit quiet. You've got a unique experience this year in 2020 where there aren't going to be any fans, or there's going to be limited fans with just families of players and coaches and things like that. How difficult can it be for a player to, everybody's saying right now, bring your own juice? How difficult is that? Or are you just so locked in that you don't necessarily feed off the crowd noise, or what's that experience do you think going to be like for this season because of the unique circumstances?
Yeah, I think anybody that tells you it's going to be easy is a liar. But I can also tell you that once the game starts, if you're not laser focused, then you shouldn't be on the field. I will say, having a guy like Coach Allen that prides himself on believing in each other and everything's for each other, and that's his whole preaching, that's everything he says, that gives you a huge advantage when you don't even worry about the crowd. Obviously, the crowd and the excitement when you're running out on the field is a huge thing, but when your sole focus is to play as hard as you can for the guy next to you as opposed to playing for the guy in the 10th row or whatever, it's just so different. And I think that Coach Allen and IU has a huge advantage this year in a season that's so strange because they've been taught to play for each other for a long time, and they're not just starting to do it now.
I agree, man. I agree. I'm looking forward to this season getting started. What's been going on with you, Dr. Page? I know you're working hard and just out going on vacation next week. Geez, I want your life.
Yeah. I don't know about that. I work. I'm in medical sales. Standing in surgeries a lot. We were really down with COVID. We didn't really do anything. The hospitals were closed. They weren't doing any elective surgeries. But there was a little kick in the restart and kind of getting back into the summer lull where some guys are going on vacation. So I'm hanging out. Get to go on vacation next week. Played some golf this summer. Was not as good as I was hoping to be.
You going to be back in time for the Penn State game?
I will not.
Be watching it on television. Well, it's on Fox Sports 1 at 3:30. So national TV, right? That's another great spot. Indiana lands on a 3:30 national TV game. That's a great spot, man. That's the right in the middle of the day.
Yeah, that's a huge draw to recruits, and it says a ton about where
you beat Penn State at 3:30. I promise you it's going to be a huge draw for recruits.
Yeah, but I think it says a lot about what the country feels about Indiana. Like, obviously people want to see Penn State, but it's the first game that the Big Ten's first weekend of the Big Ten, and they're going to put them in arguably what I think is the best spot for games on a national sports network.
I know I got to get you out of here, but Indiana does not run short of drama for those games. That's why they love Indiana, because they do keep these games close, because they play Michigan and Ohio State close. So TV loves Indiana on there. As a matter of fact, I remember 2 years ago, I think, the last time they played Michigan here, they lost that overtime game. I think that was the number one noon game for the season. And Indiana it's looking forward to it, man. Well, I appreciate you so much, bro. I can't wait to get back to either see you on the golf course or at a game, hopefully.
Yeah, I got to get down there. I want to play the new IU course. That's I don't know if any listeners have played it, but all I hear about up here in Indianapolis is, I know you have, but your game. You got to see the whole course, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. I saw the whole course all right, from side to side, front to back. Believe me.
I've heard it's phenomenal, and I cannot wait to go play it.
Appreciate you, brother. I'm so happy to get to talk to you. Appreciate you joining us, and I hope everything's going well. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, always great to be back on the show, Jim. Appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. Mitchell Page joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat. We're back with more right after this. Thank you, boss.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle,
Absolutely.
Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily, Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs, Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Hey, this is Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're now a part of the Rivals Network. TheHoosier.com is where you'll find complete coverage of the Indiana Hoosiers, as well as coverage of the Big Ten. Simply go to TheHoosier.com and sign up. It's free. You can also catch Indiana Sports Beat Radio there each day at your convenience, or you can find it any place you podcast or on this station each weekday. If we're not on the station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
No matter where you are in life, here's a question to consider. Do you have the right financial advisor to help you navigate where you want to go? An Ameriprise advisor will take the time to truly understand what's important to you and help you prepare for whatever life brings, both the expected and the unexpected, by providing personalized advice based on your goals and needs, and regular reviews along with digital tools to help you stay on track. With an Ameriprise advisor, you can feel more confident, connected, and in control of your financial life. Call Dennis Schneider, Heath Schneider, or Nick Davis with Schneider & Associates, a private wealth advisory practice of Ameriprise Financial Services. Call 877-827-1404. That's 877-827-1404. See Dennis Schneider at 236 North Elm Street in Henderson and Heath Schneider or Nick Davis at 20 East Campground Road in Evansville. Ameriprise Financial Services, LLC. Member FINRA and SIPC.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat. Coming to you from the golf club at Eagle Point Studios on this Thursday. Man, oh man, the weather dropped out yesterday. I mean, yesterday was awesome, and then it dropped out, Dustin. It was such a beautiful day, and I saw the forecast. It's going to be like 59 for a high today. Yuck. But, that's coming. You know it was coming, so it's not like you can complain about it.
You talk about Indiana weather and how it fluctuates. I have to say it's warmer, and the situation is different in Georgia, but it's the same. We had 84 degrees one day. The next day it was 64. So we have that same fluctuation.
84 degrees.
I could go by the pool, Jim, if I wanted to.
Man, oh man. Yesterday we had the opportunity to speak with Nick Sheridan and Kane Womack, the offensive and defensive coordinators for Indiana. Nick Sheridan, of course, in his first season as offensive coordinator, coming off of a season behind, golly, I mean, as good an offensive coordinator as Indiana has had here, to be honest with you. Of course, he's Kalen DeBoer I'm talking about, who's gone to San Jose State. Is that right? He's back there, right?
Fresno State,
right? I knew that wasn't right. Fresno State. And they're not even going to get to play this year, are they?
The Mountain West is coming back, but I don't think it's maybe till November. I'm not sure on the date, but they are planning to come back.
But anyway, so you got a new offensive coordinator, a freshman offensive coordinator, and it's going to be interesting to see what goes on. But we had a chance to talk to Nick yesterday, and let's first talk about where they are right now as we're about a week and a half away from opening game. Let's hear what Nick had to say.
We have cut back on the installation. We feel, comfortable just from a scheme standpoint on what has been introduced to the players. as you go through a year, there are certain things that might get tweaked or added slightly, week to week based on the opponent that you're playing, but you're certainly not trying to wholesale change each week. So the installation has slowed down. There's a few situational things, few scenarios that you have to cover with the players as you get closer to kickoff. But for the most part, our installation is pretty much wrapped up. There's a few things, obviously, as a staff we've discussed. If there's a certain defense that you're seeing from an opponent standpoint, but for the most part, we're done. And brief introduction to our first opponent, which is exciting. So it's been good, and we're moving right along.
That is the offensive coordinator, Nick Sheridan, Indiana offensive coordinator, Nick Sheridan, where they are at the moment. The first time that he's doing this, he's implementing the game plan. And normally you get 3 games, basically I call practice games, these pre-conference games. You're playing Ball State, you're playing Eastern Illinois, you're playing Chicago Southern, whatever. But you don't get that. And now your first game ever as an offensive coordinator is going to be against Penn State, a top 5 team or top 10 team in the country. Not only are you getting indoctrinated fast, but you're getting thrown straight into the fire, man. But he's been around the Indiana program for, I don't know what it is, 4 or 5 years now, or he's been here with Coach Allen. So there's some familiarity with there. But Tom Allen, we've talked about, his success recruiting. He does it a different way. He does everything a different way, his way. And it's working for him so far. I mean, the wins got to start coming. But just like going with these coordinators that are very, very young, his deal's loyalty. And it's worked for him in the recruiting side. And if it works for him in this way, great. It makes me nervous as just an outsider looking at that. You think of experience, you want experience. You would think you'd love to have experience around inexperience. But it's worked recruiting. So, hey, man, we have to sit back and let him do that. But I asked him about what he had learned from Kane Womack last year being under him. And we can see each other because we did this on Zoom. I think he's tired of this question. And I understand that. But I think he's tired of this question of being asked, what'd you learn from Kane Womack? What the Kane Womack. I think he's tired of hearing that. And I get that, like I said, but until Penn State, that question is legit and is going to be there, I think, when you're a rookie.
Right. And I'm going to say that I think there's 2 things that benefit Indiana right now as it pertains to Nick Sheridan. Number one is, at the very least, Indiana's schedule was kind of brutal up front anyway. I know they had the 3 games that got canceled, but they had to play Wisconsin right off the bat, I think on a Friday night.
Right.
So their game plan it's going to change because of the way Penn State plays defense, the way Wisconsin plays defense. So it changes slightly, but at the same time, you're still preparing for, one of the better defenses in the Big Ten. So that's a benefit. And number 2, this is to play devil's advocate a little bit here. I almost think in a way that this abbreviated offseason and delayed offseason helps Indiana's offense because Nick Sheridan wants to be his own guy, right? But at the same time, a lot of this offense is going to be what Kalen DeBoer brought in when he was here for that one season. So I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of change. So that means you're going to have players who understand this system as opposed to trying to implement maybe some of Nick Sheridan's ideas this season. And I think that's really good for a first-year offensive coordinator. And then you'll have the entire spring and the entire next fall, assuming everything goes well, to kind of, put your wrinkles in there. But I think because of the offseason, because of the way things have gone, and the abbreviated time, most of what you see from Indiana is going to be what Kalen DeBoer brought. And I think that having experienced guys who played in that offense a year ago and now having, mostly sophomores, juniors, seniors playing, I think that almost helps Indiana in a way. Obviously, you'd prefer right now to have Kalen DeBoer because the familiarity there. But at the same time, I just don't see IU's offense changing all that much because of the circumstances and because of the limited time they've had on the field together since last spring.
Oh, absolutely. There will be zero change. That was a caveat that Tom Allen reasoning that he for retaining or for naming Nick Sheridan offensive coordinator. He wanted zero change. He wanted the offense to be the same, which I get. It was successful. I mean, and they had the talent. They had the pieces that are built around that style of offense. That's what they've been recruiting to, and so it makes total sense.
Right.
But I did ask him what he'd learned from him. And I just think that I think he's tired of the question, but I get it. But who cares? But let's hear what he had to say.
I think Kalen, I think I mentioned this last week as well. He just did such a fantastic job. I think he had great experience with the schemes that we were running, and certainly got the staff on the same page, in the sense that we were able to adjust and react to different things that we were seeing, and we were collective in that effort, just from a staff standpoint, being able to put our players in the best position. To your point, halftime sometimes too late to make adjustments. You're trying to identify early on in the game how the opponent's trying to play you, and adjust accordingly. Whether you're not, even if it's within the drive, you identify that this is what their plan is, and let's try to see how we can counter and attack that. I think he just did a great job with that, and it starts with his knowledge, his understanding of our scheme, and then certainly the opponent. So he did a fantastic job, and I learned a lot from him. And
that's good enough.
Yeah.
I just started busting out laughing at the end, and I didn't even hear that before, man. I'm just like, golly, he did a fantastic job.
His annoyance did grow as the further he explained that question.
My goodness. Oh my, that's funny. Well, you know what? You want to get rid of that question? You beat Penn State, that baby's gone.
Yeah. You're
gone. And you know what? I know we've talked about it, and even with a rookie offensive coordinator, I think that I know that they can. I know that they can actually finish second in the Big Ten East, because I know that they can beat Penn State. I know that they can beat Michigan, and I know that they can beat Michigan State. But I don't know that they will beat all three of them, because they've never done that ever, even when as close as they've been. And they've never been close to beating all three in the same season that I recall. So it's like when they have Michigan on the ropes and Penn State gets them. But I truly believe that I think Michigan is just susceptible this year. Penn State's going to be an outlier, man. I mean, that's just going to be, you got to play great. You got to not make mistakes and play your best game. That's just simple, because Penn State's has more talent. That's just all there is to it. But they're beatable. You could have beat them on the road last year, so they're beatable. And that's the game where we start. Defensively, to me, that's where you've got to stop them. You've got to score, of course, and stop them. We had the opportunity to talk to Kane Womack, the defensive coordinator for Indiana, yesterday, and talk about those things of not having those 3 games. You want to talk about not having those 3 games to refine your offense. Defense, man, timing, tackling, all that stuff. Remember last year in the Ball State game, tackling was such an issue, and it took games to work that out. You don't have that this year, and you start with a top 10 team in Penn State. But I talked to Kane Womack about that. Let's hear what he had to say. Normally, you get the preseason or pre-conference games to get tuned up. Defense, obviously, a key to winning here. Without those games and starting off with an opponent like Penn State, what cliff notes can you use for your players to get them to jump past those 3 weeks you would normally have of games to have to play at the highest level possible right off the bat?
Well, I think we do have to rely some on the experience that we had. I mean, think about if we had jumped into that a year ago, that would have been a very scary scenario. And so we certainly, of course, we took our licks in a lot of situations last year just with a lack of experience. I thought we did not start well in certain games. I thought the overarching theme, as you look at last season, I didn't think we started clean enough or fast enough. And so we got to make sure we're calling the right things and our players are executing the right things in those situations. And so that has been a huge emphasis for us as a defense and what we're trying to get done and accomplish. We can do that a couple of different ways, but ultimately it's their ability to recognize and go execute. And I think to some degree, we got to just be able to lean on, a number of banked reps from a year ago to get ourselves to that point.
Defensive coordinator Kane Womack for Indiana talked about prepping for this opening game against Penn State, a top 10 opponent Indiana will take on, a Big Ten East game. Actually, and it doesn't really matter to talking about East and West, the division, and that done away with this year.
No, they're still having they're still having the division, but
that's right, because we got the crossover game.
Yeah, at the very end there.
Yeah.
So that still does it. It's still a Big Ten East game, so they could start out.
I know what it is. I know what it is. I know what it was, and I don't get this. They count cross division games against who wins their own division. Like, Wisconsin can lose to Indiana and Penn State, and that counts against them winning their division. I don't understand that. That makes no sense to me. Why have divisional splits if it doesn't matter who you play?
Right, and that's pretty much always been the case. And
that's Nebraska's argument, by the way.
Right, that's always been the case. That's always been the argument. Why? And I think Jerry DiNardo, funnily enough, is one of the guys who's been talking about this regularly. He says, why do the cross division games? Why should that determine who wins the division? If Wisconsin loses, for example, to Iowa, and Iowa has to go over and plays right. And then, but let's say, Iowa has 2 losses, but both of those are to Ohio State and Penn State. And then Wisconsin gets into the Big Ten West championship spot because Iowa had 2 losses despite the head-to-head. So
it's completely idiotic because everybody plays everybody in your division. So you've got the equality. No one plays the same across. Nobody plays. And Nebraska is whining about their games. And I get it, but I don't care about it. I'm not listening to it because Indiana plays in the Big Ten East. So shut up. But anyway, that does make sense, and I don't. It's just stupid. It's just a stupid thing. Who can't just go by your division, determine your divisional champion?
I would agree with that completely because it doesn't make sense to me, because if it was an equal playing field where you played everybody, then that's fine. But you have some people who draw Maryland, Rutgers, and Michigan State, and other guys who will draw Ohio State, Penn State, and maybe they get a Rutgers or a Maryland or whatever. So it's not the same. And maybe they'll change that at some point, but that has been an issue. And like I said, I think Jerry DiNardo's been harping on it. So maybe there'll be some change in the near future for that.
Okay, the last weekend of Big Ten less football, Dustin. Let's see. We've got the SMU's number 17. Hello. Welcome back from the world of the dead. Is that the first time they've been ranked since 1989?
That's a great question. I don't know. I don't think so.
Death penalty at 4-0. Wow.
I don't think so. I think they had a good team a few years ago.
BYU's 4-0. They're sitting at 14th. Clemson, of course, sitting at number 1. They take on Georgia Tech, Pitt, and Miami. Pitt got off to a 3-0 start and lost their last 2 games by a combined 2 points. 2 games combined 2 points.
Yep.
That's brutal.
Yep.
Auburn, South Carolina. Auburn, man. Whew. How about Arkansas? Almost shocked the world there.
That wasn't almost. That was a terrible call at the end of that. I don't know if anybody watched that game, but that was definitely a fumble. In my book, Auburn is 1-2 and Arkansas is 2-1, based on how that game ended, because Arkansas absolutely beat.
Can you imagine if right now Auburn was 1-2 and LSU was 1-2?
Whew! I mean, this
should be the case.
If you're going to have that kind of down year in the SEC, this is probably the year to do it, because there's probably not going to be a coaching change. I mean, I know some of those boosters in the SEC have some big money, so maybe, I mean, that may not be off the table, but if there's a year to have a bad year, 2020 is it.
UK, Tennessee, Cincinnati, Tulsa, Louisville, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Mississippi State not looking good. Oh, that game's in peril, isn't it? Or is it Ole Miss? Somebody's
Ole Miss right now. Yeah.
North Carolina, Florida State. North Carolina sitting at 3-0. They're in the top 5, I think, now. Georgia, Alabama, Saturday night. There we go. Number 2, Alabama hosts number 3, Georgia. Hello.
And potentially no Nick Saban.
Now, will he coach via Zoom?
What I read this morning was that if he tests positive, if he can't be at the game, he cannot coach. He cannot have communication with players or coaches. So it would be probably Steve Sarkisian.
You think he's texting, just going to be burning it. He's going to be texting more than Lane Kiffin, man. Who you talking about?
They're going to have to check those tablets on the sideline to make sure they ain't getting any incoming calls or texts or messages or whatever the case might be.
Holy cow. That's big. That's big news. I mean, the fact that he can't be there. I mean, people think that's not a big deal. Oh, it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Oh, it is.
Big decisions are made by the head coach, and big decisions determine the outcomes of these games.
And you know what's funny about this too is as Nick Saban's assistants or whatever, 0-21, 0-22 against him, this might be the time that Georgia has the best chance to beat Alabama. And can you imagine if they finally get Kirby Smart, a former assistant of Nick Saban, if he finally gets that win and Nick Saban isn't on the sideline? Oh, that's got to be brutal. Although he's probably not going to care if you beat Alabama anyway. So.
Can't wait, man. It's been a great day. I cannot thank you enough. It's been a fun show, as always. Cannot thank Mitchell Page enough. Our man, Mitch. Well, I love him. He's a good buddy. Appreciate him coming on, and I look forward to doing this all again tomorrow. Alec Lasley from thehoosier.com. Make sure you go there for complete coverage of Indiana athletics and the Big Ten. He's got the basketball complete coverage up there, all the post-game pressers and the recent IU Media Basketball Day pressers are up there, but he'll be on tomorrow along with former IU basketball player Verdell Jones, who'll be sitting in with us as well, as he does each Friday. Dustin, thanks, brother. I hope you have a great weekend watching some of these great games. It's the last weekend without Big Ten football.
That's right. Next week we'll be previewing Indiana Penn State, so I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
Can't wait, buddy. You have a good one. Everybody else have a good one as well. Go out today, do something nice for somebody. Wear your mask, please. And until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.